Welcome to this next episode of YouTube. We've just entitled it Luna. Certainly that's the big question on everyone's mind is how's Luna doing? What are some of the latest reports that we've gotten since we've done a little bit of more medical work with her. This clip again shows a period of time when Luna and Bolts were transitioned back together, which we addressed at the last YouTube we had done last Thursday. Certainly she's doing fine. Obviously smaller than Bolts. Certainly still have a back right leg kind of a hop, but she's holding her own and she's growing. Her weight continues to advance into that 34-pound range, and we're real happy about that. We're trying to maximize her food, maximize her supplements, and we did spay her on Wednesday, and we took while she was under anesthesia, we were able to take a much more detailed look at her x-rays, and we're going to use those x-rays with comparison to Bolts, and Bolts goes in next week for a neuter, and we're going to do a comparative analysis between Luna and Bolts' x-rays to get a sense of how her mineralization or how her bone density is advancing. We do know that it's improving. The femur fracture is not visible on the x-rays. We do see calcified growth on the plate. We know that she's doing well. We know that she will continue to need nutritional supplements as she finishes her growth of her skeletal structure. Very happy with the results, and obviously letting them back together was a real important thing. These two pups need to have a social relationship if Luna is to join Bolts, and we do not know that yet. Basically, we're not going to make that determination until July 24th when Bolts goes in for neutering. That's when we'll know, based on his x-rays and compared to her x-rays, how well she's doing. But for the most part, she's interacting extremely well in the yard. Now, obviously, since the spay on Wednesday, she's back on restriction where she cannot roughhouse or actually even interact with Bolts for another 5 days. So that's been a little bit frustrating for her, coming off an 8-week surgery restriction, finally getting to really spend some time with Bolts, and then we go ahead and turn around and isolate him again. So that's been a little bit frustrating, but we felt that was important to get that out of the way while she was still a manageable pup, while we still had people here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to be able to monitor her, and then again while we were had enough time that we could still get them back together. If we were to proceed with both pups on July 30th with the introduction, we needed to take care of this space, so we had at least 5 days prior to introduction for them to work out any of their differences while they've been isolated. So it took, I may have referenced this last week in YouTube, took about 3.5 hours of some very intense dominance and roughhousing after the last separation before they were sleeping together. And when they started to sleep together, it was a very dramatic change in behavior. They were much more relaxed and much less agitated with each other. We expect that to be shorter with this reunion that comes after the spay isolation. We do expect to see some kind of a roughhousing transition. Now with Luna, again, we still want to keep her relatively calm, but that's easier said than done. This pup is very active. This pup has a desire to be interactive, and she's got good mobility. I mean, she's obviously jumping the tank there was something that she easily did without any hesitation, and so we're torn between protecting her, but also we've got to develop those muscles. And so the more agile she is, the more interactive she is, the more agile she is, the better muscle development she gets. So that's a balancing act. The other balancing act has been the heat, and this is just not northern Minnesota weather, so we continually to keep the wolves cooled, misting them down, allowing them to just have a light mist to cover their coats to help cool them off, especially Luna. That black color phase does heat up pretty fast, so we're constantly in the yard trying to cool them down. Luna is a very inquisitive pup. Between the two pups, Luna is clearly more predatory, clearly more dominant, clearly more investigatory. She will constantly lunge at things, stalk things, attack things, rip things apart, far more than you're seeing in what we call a toss behavior here, which is grab something and toss it to the side. If you watch wolves eat on a carcass, when they pluck the hide from the carcass, they're doing that same kind of toss behavior. So as far as pup development, Luna is far more advanced in the predatory skills necessary to interact in a pack that's feeding on carcasses. Last week's video, I think I showed a short clip where she actually did a threat display to Aiden when he brought her a deer leg. She is very, very likely to possess food, and that's one thing that the adults typically will do, is the adults will give the pups free rein for that first few months when they're in there, and I think Luna's going to really take advantage of that. Now, obviously, when winter hits, pups typically have to fall to the bottom of the rank order, but the good thing for Luna is she's the only female. And so by default, rank orders, and again, there can be dominance between male and females, but typically males have a rank order and females have a rank order, and Luna being the only female is a much better scenario than if she were joining other females. I'd be a lot more concerned if she was going in with other females than I am with her going in with other males. And again, just to qualify, we have not made any decisions and will not make any decisions on Luna until we see Boltz's x-ray in comparison to Luna and be able to see how is she advancing. Again, remember, she's an 8-day younger pup, but Boltz, we know he's got good conformation. We know we've got good bone structure. He is a very healthy pup, and so he's our baseline to see where we'd like her to be, and hopefully the nutritional supplements are going to get her there. So we'll continue nutritional supplements. The other question people had is, when they go in, do they just eat once a week with the adults? Not at all. Puppies have to be fed. We're talking at least 2 times a day, possibly for Luna 3 times a day to be able to get that nutritional supplement in her. She's taking 30 grams of supplement a day, generally 10 grams every 8 hours, and so we are trying to maximize her food resources. As a matter of fact, today, which is 1 day post-surgery, she ate 26 ounces of meat today. She had 29 ounces of formula. And we are continuing to feed her Espalac milk replacer for the calcium, even though normally pups would have been weaned by now. But this is real important for her to continue to get that maximize food of calcium, as well as the supplements, as well as the meat. So here they are in what we call the runway. This is kind of where a temporary holding place is prior to them going into programs. That's just a hole that they dug to get some relief, and you can see a very good interaction between these pups. A little bit of jaw sparring, a little bit of scruff biting, a little bit of pinning from Boltz. But Boltz is really, for his size, he is really a good pup. He's over 45 pounds, so he's easily got 10 pounds on her, and he's very gentle with her. So as we said, the bond is real important. I'm going to let you listen to this howl, and then I'll talk a little bit about where it was filmed. So the previous clip was filmed in the lab. The lab is concrete, and so we have blankets on the floor to kind of give Luna a little cushioning. Howling between the 2 pups, again, is very important, and that was one of the early days that they were transitioned back together, where they started to sleep together and did real well. Aiden has a very strong focus on these pups. He's constantly watching right at the fence if there's any whining from the pups, any interaction. And we actually have to keep Oscar under control. If Oscar's roughhousing too much with the pups, Aiden does not like it. So, again, we're very confident that Aiden's going to take the lead role on guarding these pups. We know he's going to take the lead role on greeting these pups. So that's been very positive, and here we've got a clip of some scent rolling. This is just a fly ointment issue. We tried a brand new fly ointment, and Aiden's leery of being sprayed with fly ointment. Denali basically stands there like he's at a groomer. You can spray him up and down his body. He doesn't care. Aiden's a lot more leery of it. They're different personalities, different pups, even though they had the same exact socialization process. So what we do, as we did in retirement, when it's something that we want to coat over their entire body, we'll spray it on the ground, spray it on a tree, spray it on rocks or something like that, so they'll scent roll up against it. And we're all anxiously waiting for the fly season to be done. It has been a long, hot summer and lots of flies, and that's continually a battle. But you see here Aiden completely shed. His winter coat is gone. He's got a nice summer coat. He's in good conformation. And as a matter of fact, his nose coloration on the pigmentation is coming back. So he's looking healthy and certainly going to be ready for this introduction. The other thing that's probably going on in this pen, lots of smells, lots of scents, lots of activity. We're going to want to do a full kind of a enclosure check to see what's out there and if there's anything out there that might be risky to the pups. Usually there's not, but you never know if something got into the pen. But the pups are going to have days and days and days of finding beaver heads and deer legs and things that will be really enticing to them. So that's going to be a real good stimulus, and that's, one of the benefits of being a pup is exploring, and that will be a behavior that they will do on a regular basis. So again, just at this point, I'm not certain about Luna yet, but for sure bolts on July 30th. So back over in the rest of the world in semi-retirement, again, Grizzer continues to howl, and I'll let you listen to him. And over in retirement, saw some interesting behavior this week. That's Malik on the den, and I'm sitting next to him filming. Notice that threat display there, lip curl, and you can hear a little bit of growling from him. What he's growling at is shadows digging up one of his caches. And this is something that happens. Wolves cache a lot of food. We talk about how they may be fed once a week, but doesn't mean they're only eating once a week. One of the reasons why we feed large size carcasses is to give them a lot of that opportunity for other behaviors like caching and tug of war and all the kind of feeding behaviors that have evolved with multiple animals eating on one carcass. And it took us a long time to get Shadow Malik to the point where they engage in those behaviors. If you recall, when Malik was alone, he was fed small amounts on a regular basis. When Shadow joined him, Shadow didn't want to engage in carcass feeding, and so it's really nice to see Shadow again back to that behavior of caching and finding food and really maximizing all those carcass feeding behaviors. You can see here Shadow is not finished shedding. Neither one of the Arctics are really done. They're a little leery of brushing, so you have to take it really slow and really calm with them. They're not nearly like the other wolves that we've worked with, but we do continue to see getting better about some handling, but not getting good enough about fly ointment that we can really protect these guys like we do everybody else. So you can see the black spots on the top of their ears from fly bites. Some of it's old ointment that we've gotten on there, but we struggle with this, and we're trying a few different things, including fly predators, going to try fly traps, or really trying to figure out what's going to be the best source of control for flies when we know that we can't put the ointment right on their ears. Shadow there did a little bit of a RLU on top of that cache, digging it up and then scraping the ground afterwards, kind of marking that cache that he just took from Malik. So what does Malik do when Shadow's eating his cache? Well, let's just go hang out in the shade. One thing about these guys and this enclosure, they have some really good cover. Majority of my job is probably facilities management, and I think I spend the most time on vegetative issues, on fence issues and things. And we're very fortunate to retired enclosure because we've made it a little bit larger size a few years ago that reduced the compaction, and we're able to get some of that nice vegetative cover back. So the only other comment I heard from some people is, why don't I have more Oscar footage? Oscar is alive and well and working 7 days a week, helping us manage puppies, getting in and out of the building. Still doing a great job in showing bolts how to submit, but unfortunately Oscar's taken to submitting to bolts as well. So we definitely don't want Oscar in a submissive posture, but we do want him to pin bolts so that bolts gets used to the idea of being rolled over by a bigger canid. Although bigger is a relative term, bolts is now as tall as Oscar, and so the introduction's 10 days away, and good thing for Oscar, because if bolts get any bigger, I don't know that Oscar could even pin him. But the excitement that Denali sees with Oscar and bolts wrestling around is different than Aiden. Aiden's more protective. Denali seems like he wants to engage in social chasing behavior, and so and that's why I usually kind of keep the leash on Oscar if the puppies are around, so I can quickly control him in front of the adults, so that there's no competitiveness going on there. So like I say, introduction July 30th. We know Bolts is going in for sure. We don't know about Luna. By the next week's YouTube, we should have a definitive plan for her. But they're both watching, and they are constantly engaged in what goes on in the adults, and we definitely see a very, very strong desire for both of these pups to be near the adults and to watch the adults on a regular basis. So that's all very positive, and again, we are happy to report Luna's gaining weight. Like to see her at 38 or 40 pounds before the introduction, but for right now, she's holding her own. So that's it for you this week's YouTube. Thanks for watching.